All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone. To this Q&A. Someone asked a question which gets into really the question about Emunah and Bitachon, which topic always I think needs to be strengthened, especially today. A lot of things going on in the world, in general, that definitely are a test. Test for us, test for our belief, belief and faith in God, right? And the question is, we've used I guess the parable, this idea that when something happens to a person gets damaged, in a certain way, whatever it is. And what's first reaction is, this person did this, person did that, person did another thing, when the reality is God is using this person as a stick, right? He's using the person as a stick in order to get to us. So God forbid, a person driving down the streets and, you see out the corner of your eye, there's a stop sign, and you see that someone's got their face in a handheld device, miss the stop sign, bam. Right? They go right into your car. Now, let's say, don't cause tremendous amount of damage, but, person's shaken up, the car's damaged, whatever. What's the first thing you do? As long as, you yourself didn't get necessarily hurt, you're running out screaming at the person. Right? That would be the normal reaction. Not the normal reaction according to the Torah, but that would be the normal reaction. And that is, you'd be yelling and screaming at the person. Went to the stop sign, went to the red light, whatever it was. They were texting, whatever the case is. Right? Whatever the case is. So now, we jump up and down and yell and scream at them. But the reality is, God sent them to us. God sent them as a stick to get to us. Now, if that's true, remember the dog that gets hit by the stick, who does the dog go after? The stick. Doesn't go after the one yielding the power. Right? The one who is, using the stick against the dog. Not that, we're saying a person should hit a dog with a stick, in general. So the Chos of Avos, duties of heart, as he says in Shar Bitachon, that if someone does something to us, we should go up and hug them and thank them for being able to work on our anger. Now, someone will say, come on. Maybe the Chos of Avos is only talking about the righteous. Maybe, but he's not. He says pretty clear he's not talking to the righteous. Mentions a number of times. How many people are holding by it? That's not even the question. He says that's your obligation. Right? So anything like this happens, we're jumping up and down, yelling and screaming, why did you do this? Why do that? And again, it has nothing to do with us. We didn't do necessarily anything wrong. We didn't bring anything upon ourselves. We didn't transgress Kaufman's 615th commandment, don't be a moron. Right? It happened. Someone caused us damage. Now, the bigger scheme of things, we deserved it for any number of reasons. Right? Could it have to do with our Gilgul, with our reincarnated soul, many things, many possible ways that could have happened. Okay, so that's just way of introduction. So now, what was the question? Question is, with this analogy, the dog and the stick, wouldn't that relieve the well-doers of any personal responsibility? No. See, that was easy. No, why not? Why not? The person's still liable. Even secular law will make it very easy. Someone who's negligent, they were texting, they weren't paying attention, they went through a stop sign, they went through a red light. Again, no problem with the brakes, they weren't paying attention. They damaged your car. Who's liable? They're liable. No question, they're liable. Right? They'll take it off their insurance, whatever the case is, they're liable. Doesn't mean they're not liable here. Right? The one causing the damage, they're liable. God is just using them to get to you. Whether it's this person, somebody else, what we say, God has a lot of messengers. A lot of messengers. cause all kinds of damage. Doesn't have to be a human either. Right? It can use in the form of a hurricane, use in the form of a tsunami, an earthquake, other things. Right? It can use in the form of, a monetary meltdown. Right? Let's say it happened in 2008. Right? You had the meltdown of all these foreclosures, and all that in the States. Right? So, a lot of people, lost a lot, can't move, property's not worth as much. That's not their fault. That's not a person's fault. You're not in control of that. You can say how all these banks gave loans to people, really couldn't pay them back. And then you had a whole problem with all these banks owning these properties, people going into foreclosure. What does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with me? Right? Person wants to move, they want to convert, they want to, go to a Jewish community. The house is now worth a lot less. They're not in control of that. Right? So God's using that in order to get to whoever. Right? There are different ways, different things God can do. So the reality is the ones wielding the power, or the ones who are being used as the stick, right? There's another factor here. The other factor is, what about free will? Is God taking away their free will? That's actually this week's parsha. This week's parsha, Parshas Bo, speaks about God hardening Pharaoh's heart. So if God hardens his heart, there's an obvious question. What's the obvious question? The obvious question is, so why does he get punished? Is there no control? There's no way he can control his inclination. God took it away. God took away his free will. God takes away a person's free will, God forbid. You would say, what do you want? I'm silly putty here. I'm being used as a puppet. So why should I get punished for what I do? I shouldn't get punished. It's not my fault. It's out of my control. So the idea is over here that we still have free will. Pharaoh had an opportunity to repent. God gave him an opportunity by the first number of plagues. And he was so praising, God says, okay, you don't want to repent. You don't want to see what reality is. Fine. I'm going to demolish your whole country. I'm going to demolish the world power, and I'm going to keep you alive, and you're going to watch it. All right. Some of the commentaries say, so at that point, God took his free will away. And he punished him. And he punished his entire nation based on what he did. He totally got decimated. Right? Everything gets destroyed. You got the locusts, they eat everything up. Produce. The wild animals causing havoc. All kinds of things. Not to mention killing the firstborn. So the question here is, the one who's using the stick to beat the person, they have free will. God's not putting a gun to their head and say, do this. Certainly not. Right? They have free will. Now, if they have free will, they're liable. But God is using them, to hit the other person, to cause damage. You're right. That doesn't mean the person doesn't have free will. Right? You might say, well, if God is directing him, he loses free will. He doesn't lose his free will. Right? That's the question. That gets to another question, and that is, when Abraham says, I want to understand God's attributes, what does God say? Your nation, your progeny are going to go in a nation not their own. They're going to suffer. Right? They're going to suffer. Now, we understand who they're going to suffer from. These are the parshas we're reading. Right now, over the last few weeks. Who are they going to suffer by? The Egyptians. Our Torah doesn't say who it is. Torah doesn't say at all who it is. So what happened? So why are the Egyptians punished? We know it's the Egyptians. Right? They get punished because they're the ones who did it. God's using them to wield the stick. Who says they had to do it? Could have been any other nation. God could have sent to. Could have sent them, I don't know, wherever. So that nation would have been liable. Or another nation would have been liable. Just because the person has free will, and God's going to use them to hit someone else or whatever, they don't have to do it. Someone else can do it. Like we said before, there are a lot of ways, a lot of messengers. Right? God said, well, it's going to be this messenger. It could be anybody. It could be anybody who wants to do it. Right? The Egyptians jumped up and did it, and they went too far. That's why God punished them so severely. They went way too far. Right? If they've gone way too far, God said, okay. Now, obviously, the Jewish people had to be in Egypt. Right? They had to go through what they need to go through. Different reasons why. But even so, who says the Egyptians had to do what they did? You're going to say God turned their screws. Why turned their screws? Could have been anybody. The fact that they did it, they jumped up to do it, their choice. God's not saying, okay, I'm going to make you do it. They jumped up. They're the ones who wanted to do it. Right? So it could be. Obviously, God knows the future. God knows the past. He knows who's going to do what. Right? But that could change. Maybe someone else is going to do it. Maybe some other nation come up and do it, cause havoc. But that doesn't mean, even if God knows it's going to be them, he's going to use somebody to do this, that person still has free will. They haven't lost their free will. So therefore, if they're the ones wielding the power, they're the ones doing the blows and all that, they're liable. God uses them like silly putty. So what? Doesn't mean they don't have free will. We all have free will. Right? The problem is, in one aspect, it could be sometimes the person may be, my Rebbe brings this down in a few places, that sometimes we could be so ingrained and, so overtaken, let's say better, so overtaken by our evil inclination, it's as if we've lost our free will, just like by Pharaoh. So my Rebbe says, you got to be very, very careful, because a person can be so far gone, they'll never change. But a person can always repent. A person can surely repent. How can it be that our free will is taken away? Now, a person knows. A person knows themselves. They know where, in most cases, they know where their evil inclination lies. They know things they do that they shouldn't, etc. So they got to make a plan not to do it, or work hard not to do it. Stay away from this like the plague, no pun intended. All these different things. But in the end, a person can say, what can I do? If you put these things in front of me, I'll eat them. Even if I'm not so hungry, I'll eat them. So what happened? So what happened to, free will over here? They have free will. They don't have to eat it. But see, a person can be so far gone, you put something in front of them, this is what they do. They can't stop themselves. It's like many things like an addiction. Once a person gets addicted to something, it's very hard to stop, regardless of what the addiction is. Very, very hard to stop. But that doesn't mean they're stuck. Doesn't mean that. Right? If a person, doesn't have the ability to stop themselves, that doesn't mean every single time that's going to be the case. They just don't want to work hard to do it, or they don't want to work at all. Right? They'll say, this is the way I am, this is what I do. But you can change that. Person may say, it's too hard. I've tried it before, it's never worked. They can make excuses. But they don't have any discipline. They don't have any self-discipline. So therefore, whatever happens, happens. See, we don't hold that. Judaism does not hold that. We have to have discipline. Right? You got to wait 6 hours between meat and milk. Right? You can't eat. And, unless you come from a certain community, maybe you can wait 3 hours or 1 hour. Right? If a person lived in Amsterdam, that was the custom there. Regardless, person will say, well, why would we punish someone to do that? It's not a punishment. The divine command. Right? It's rabbinic. Right? But the divine command is you can't eat milk and meat together. Right? We understand you can't cook them together. Right? If I eat meat, I gotta wait a certain amount of time. If I eat milk, now I want to eat meat, I don't have to wait that much time unless it's hard cheese, been aged for more than 6 months. But again, so a person's not allowed to do it. It's a command, but also takes discipline. Right? It takes discipline. Now, I would say I don't necessarily have a problem because I eat part of chocolate, right? Bittersweet chocolate. I'm like, say I don't like that. Well, it's not my problem. I went shopping earlier. Every time I go shopping on a Thursday, I take some chocolate with me, right? Part of chocolate. I don't know. I mean, it's not like I eat meat either, but, I don't have that issue. So if you don't like part of chocolate, okay. They have to, you have to deal with that. But, if a person comes into this, either it's about tshuva, right? Or, a non-Jew converts. So, okay, these things take discipline. Can't just eat whatever you want when you want. Takes discipline. Very good. And a person that, well, I have no discipline, or I like eating this stuff too much. I like shrimp. Person says they like lobster, this, that. They're not going to give it up, okay? Right? Because if they're used to it, they're used to it. But doesn't that mean they have no self-discipline here? If God says don't eat it, what are you going to say? It's your desire versus what God says. Right? They have to have discipline. Now, there are some people who say, I have no discipline. That's too bad. You can't always do what you want. Right? There's a higher power over here. It tells you what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. But I don't want to digress here. Right? So the ones wielding the power, why are they not guilty? They're 100% guilty. Right? If what they did is wrong. They cause damage. They cause psychological damage. Said things against other people. Made them feel bad. Beat them down psychologically. Now, could be this is what God wants you to go through. For whatever reason. Which we don't know. Question is, what's our reaction to it? But we shouldn't think that the person who's doing this, well, what can we do? They're not liable. Why in the world shouldn't they be liable? Of course they're liable. Unless you tell me their free will 100% is taken away. If their free will is taken away, that's a different issue. That'd be a totally different issue. But they have free will, right? That's not a contradiction. They have free will. They have to take responsibility. Right? The other question, which, I'd have to play God over here, put on my funny glasses and my funny mustache. Why do these things happen? We don't know. We don't know. Could be something we've done to deserve it. Could be has something to do with our past, meaning, our reincarnated soul. Could be many reasons why. We don't know. We don't know. No prophets today. So nobody knows. So even if we don't know, it doesn't mean the perpetrator gets away with it. He may get away with it in this world in certain ways. But in the true world, the world of truth, they'll pay the price. But in this world, they may also get it. Depends what they've done. Depends what damage they've caused. Right? Somebody steals, you go after it. Make him pay it back if he's able to pay it back. Doesn't go unfounded. Right? Doesn't happen where the person gets away with it, even if they go to jail. They don't get away with it. But if God's using that person to get to you, again, if the person did something wrong, whether psychologically, whether physically, cause damage, other things, they're liable. Nothing to talk about, they're liable. They don't get a free pass over here. But at the same time, the question is, which is a valid question. It's a very good question. So what about free will? Right? I did a video, about predestination on Tanakh, right? So even if something's supposed to happen to a person, doesn't mean this one person's going to do it. It could be someone else. This person just the one who did it. But if he's the one that did it, doesn't mean he doesn't have free will. It doesn't mean he's going to go unpunished. They'll get punished. God will take care of them, whether in this world or the next. That we have no doubt. Only problem is we want to see justice today. Right? We want the person to pay the price. And we have to be very careful. Right? I mentioned this before. We have to be very careful. And that's if a person causes damage, a person should not pray that God take care of them. Because that shows a lack of emunah, a lack of faith, as if to say, God, you're not doing your job. You do that, you're in big trouble. Then God says, okay, let's see. You want me to take care of this person. Where are you holding? Where are you holding in the world? And if you're not holding where you should be, and God opens up your file, which a person will say, it's not fair. Why opening my file? Right? What's the reason? Because you're saying, essentially, God's not doing his job. You want God to take care of business. I want you to take care of X. Look what he did to me over here. I want you to take care of it. Right? So we say in the Shemona Esrei, in silent meditation, the Amidah, whatever you want to call it, right? And we pray that God does justice. God does justice. And you have in mind, take care of this person. What you're saying God's not doing his job. Not only that, it shows a lack of faith. Essentially, it shows a lack of faith. So what happens? God says, oh, you want me to take care of him? You want me to take care of these people? Well, who are you? What do you think? You're God's gift to the world over here, no pun intended. I should take care of them. Who are you? Let's open your file. Let's see where you're holding the world. And if you're holding somewhere in the world, God can say, okay, you passed the test, fine. I'll take care of business. If not, you're in trouble. Right? It was always, this bothered me for a while. What does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with where I'm holding the world? Everyone will agree in this case, let's just say. Everyone will agree, person caused damage, and God should take care of them. Now, there is something lacking in that, not just the lack of emunah, lack of faith in God, and, saying that God's not doing his job. It goes a little bit further. Because if this is supposed to happen, and a person is supposed to lose out, so to speak, this is what God wants. He's just using this person to get to you. Right? But a person will say, it's not fair. How many times have I heard people say this? But it's not fair. So let me ask you the $1 million question. Is life about being fair? Life is not about being fair. I have to serve God to the best of my ability. I have to do what he says. I have to live up to the standards of what he wants. Now, if we would take into consideration on a daily basis what we do, how we interact with others, where my thoughts are, right? Let's make it clear. The Gemara says that a person's thoughts could be even worse than the sin itself. You're going to say, how can it be? Devarim shebelev eino devarim. Words in my heart don't mean anything, the Talmud tells me. So what does it do with my thoughts over here? It's what I do. But see, if a person thinks terrible things and wants terrible things to happen, even if they don't come to fruition, right? The thoughts are bad because it puts ideas into our head, most likely bad ideas in our head. Whether we act on them or not, doesn't really matter. But the point is, it affects who we are. It affects who we are, in a major way. So we got to learn how to control our thoughts. We have to learn how to control our actions. Right? There are a lot of things that we need to do. So I would venture to say, you know what? I think people will be surprised. It depends how a person does this. But a person may be unpleasantly surprised, let's say better, when they realize what they've done during the day. Take a whole day, from the time you wake up to right before you go to sleep. And write down things you did well, things you didn't do well. Write down where your thoughts were. I don't think people want to do this. Why would I say they don't want to do it? It's going to be very painful. Because they're going to see on the score of 1 to 100 if they're really honest. I'm not just saying about putting yourself down and reaching levels of Kabbalah. We're not talking about that. But if a person's really honest, where their mind was, what they did, how they interacted with others, if you get 30 to 40%, you'll be lucky. You're going to say, what, we're that bad? Some more, some less. But think, if we were going to dissect this and look at everything we do with a fine tooth comb, right? Does this make me a better person, i.e. closer to God or not? Or does it take me away? And, there are many different levels. It also depends where I'm holding in the world, spiritually. A lot of different things going on. But I'm saying if we look at it at face value, right? Very, very face value. Right? I would ask how many people are going to pay, how many people are going to stand up to that challenge? How many people, let's say better, how many people are going to pass the test? Get more than a 50. If we're really honest. Problem is we're not really honest. Person can say, come on, I'm holding better than most Jews in the world. Even if that's true, but God's going to hold you to a higher standard. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what everyone else around us is doing. Some say, well, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm happy being mediocre. Yeah, go apply for a job and tell them you're happy being mediocre. They'll never hire you. Right? Yeah, I would get probably a C- in this and a C- in that. I don't really do things very well, blah, blah, blah. They'll never hire you. So there's a tremendous responsibility, right? The more we know, the more responsible we are, right? 100% true. And we can't say, well, look at everybody else. Look what they're doing. So I'm not doing close to that. You're right. Because I have a higher awareness. But if you have a higher awareness to the king, you got to serve the king the way he wants to be served, not the way we think we should serve it. Right? Not Torah made up in our own minds. That's not good enough. Let's catch 22 either way. If we don't know anything, we're going to pay a price. Right? We won't pay the same price as if, we did it on purpose. Because, person doesn't have any knowledge. They grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho. No offense, anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. They don't know anything. They never learned. So God is going to, they're going to be liable. They just won't be liable like they understood what they were doing. But on the other hand, if you have someone who knows what they're doing, they absolutely know what they're doing. And they falter here, they falter there. Isn't God going to understand? Someone's going to say, come on, isn't God going to cut me some slack? Maybe. But if you know better, then obviously you're closer to the king. And if you're closer to the king expects more. Right? If you were the mailman, if you were the water carrier, and you did something wrong, you think the king's going to care? I don't think so. If you did something egregious, maybe. But if not, the king's not really going to care. But if you're closer to the king, and you did something, you weren't paying attention, whatever it was, king's going to get really angry. You're going to say, but why are you picking on me? There are other people who do other things. You know what the king's going to say? Because You have higher responsibility. I'm paying you more. Right? You're in the higher echelons over here. I expect more. Totally expect more over here. So it's a catch-22. It's a catch-22 in different ways. So we can't look at what's around us. We're going to have to answer for ourselves after 120 years. If we got good excuses why we did certain things, good. If not, we're going to pay a price. We'll certainly pay a price. But it's irrelevant what goes on. God doesn't care what's going on. He's interested in you do what he said to do or not. At the level where you need to be holding. We were under onus. Other things happen. Did you do well in this trial? You didn't do well in this trial. That's what we're here for. We are here to toil. We are here to work hard. Essentially, we're in this world to struggle. That's what we're here for. Some have it easier, some have it harder. At the end of the day, the question is, things get thrown our way, how do we deal with it? A lot of things most people never would have signed up for. Never. And what does that show? We're not in control. Totally not in control. Question is how we deal with it. Right? So back to really the question, the one who causes the damage, and they could cause severe damage. They can cause a lifetime of damage by doing one thing or multiple things. Whether it's something, physical, whether it's something psychological, whether it's both. They're going to pay the price. Make no mistake, they're going to pay the price. And they have free will. If it's not them, someone else could do it. They definitely have free will. But the question's going to be, okay, now it happened to me. And you can ask the question, why is everybody always picking on me? They're not fair. We just said life's not about being fair. Right? The question is how I deal with it. How I deal with it. So, many people, let's say return to Judaism. It's what we call Baalei Tshuva. Right? Born Jewish, not religious, come back to Judaism. And the family gives them a tremendously hard time. They make fun of them. They say all kinds of things. These people don't know anything. But it's painful. It hurts. Because we know we have the truth. They don't want to listen to the truth. All they want to do is make fun. That's all they want to do. Right? So one way around the problem is we look at these people like they're insane, which they are. Totally insane. Right? They're mentally challenged. They have an IQ of about 20 when it comes to Judaism. Now, if someone's got an IQ of 20 and they say something or they make fun of us maybe multiple times, the only thing we can do is laugh. That's what we should do. Right? What are we going to take seriously? If a person has an IQ of 20, they deserve to be in the straitjacket and Sing Sing. Sticks and stones. You're right, but sticks and stones can hurt. Okay? We got to make sure that the mind and the heart don't disconnect. I'm not saying it's not painful. Could be painful, but if I look at this person like they're absolutely out of their minds and they're insane, why am I going to take what they say seriously at all? Like someone once said, if I breathe on your food, on your kosher food, does that mean it's not kosher? Like, person's an idiot. Why? They just want to get to me. Just to make fun. Ha, ha, ha. I'm not going to say it's malicious. They just want to make fun. So that was my answer. My answer is no, it's totally kosher. It's got bad breath on it. You said something stupid, so I'm going to answer you. I'm not going to put you in your place. Oh, you're really tough. No, you just said something stupid. Why shouldn't I answer? I'm not saying everyone should answer. Right? Somebody mentally challenged says something to you. Right? Down syndrome person says something to you. Maybe comes up and hits you, bangs you, gets in your way. They don't know what they're doing. Practically speaking, Are they in their right minds? They're not. Totally not in their right mind. It might be a little bit annoying, what they've done, whatever, fine. But why in the world am I going to get upset by such a thing? I'm not saying it might not be annoying, but it shouldn't even be annoying to us. We should feel bad for them in different ways. Because look who they are. They have the IQ of a 5-year-old. Not even. We should have compassion for them. I'm going to get upset. 5-year-old said this or whatever. I'm going to really take what they say seriously. You got to live that. When it comes to family and other people, people can say things that are offensive below the belt. They don't know anything about anything, right? So we get offended, right? So we have to work on ourselves, not only not to get offended, just to say like who are you? I'll give an example. It didn't happen because I don't want to go to jail. But I was on a bus, whatever, a while ago. More than a month ago, month and a half ago. And to get into Jerusalem, the driver says, police are coming on the bus, everyone's going to put on masks. So some people wearing masks, some people not. Whatever. And there was a yeshiva student, whatever, was half asleep, whatever, didn't get his mask on in time. The police gave him a fine. Gave him like $150 fine. $170 fine, something like that. But it wasn't just gave him a fine. What does the police officer say? Police officer says, you're an ultra-Orthodox Jew. You wear hats, you wear tzitzis, you wear a kippah. Don't you want to end Corona? Now I was sitting there. I was also half asleep. But I was sitting there thinking, who are you? You don't even keep Shabbos. Right? I did everything I could not to get out of my seat and say something. Like, if it was a secular Jew, you would have hammered him. You might have just said, don't you want to end Corona? You wouldn't have said anything about his religious status. Certainly not an Arab. You never would have done that. God forbid. Right? Absolute chutzpah. Chutzpah. That's what you say. What is the difference if he's wearing a hat and jacket or not? Right? It's not like anyone's wearing masks anywhere else. Not in restaurants. Not anywhere. People aren't wearing masks. Okay, so, they are checking buses. You go in a bus outside the city. Say Jerusalem going, up north or whatever. You don't have masks on, you're not getting on the bus. Right? That's just the reality. You're not going to get on the bus. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have your mask totally over your face, over your nose while you're on the bus. But, it also depends where you sit. A couple of weeks ago, someone sat right by the driver. It didn't cover his face. Right? It's like, the mask underneath the chin. So the driver started screaming at him. Like, yeah, I know. So so do it. Well, what does it have to do with the hat and jacket and the yarmulke that's wearing on his head? Right? Incredulous. The person doesn't know anything about anything. Jewishly. You got the chutzpah to say, that's what you do? Come on, don't you want Corona to end? But what does that do with he's wearing a kippah or not? Nobody else is wearing masks out there in the world. Right? All over the place, you don't see people wearing masks. Some are. Most people aren't. They're not enforcing anything. At least not here. So what are you arguing about? I understand. Okay. You want to give him a fine? Fine. Really? You should have a mask on a bus. Are most people wearing a mask on a bus here? No. But okay, police officer comes on, you better have your mask on, otherwise you're going to get fined. But what does that have to do with religion? You're going to say that to a secular Jew? Certainly not. Person got the IQ of a 5-year-old over here, right? A religious IQ, let's say better. Person can be, extremely intelligent. So what? Well, they have the right to say such a thing. Racist. If you tell me everyone's going to wear masks, that's the law. Everyone should be wearing masks. Whether you believe in it or not, that's the law. You don't wear it, you get fined. Okay? Doesn't matter you believe in it or not. They can't force me. They could. They certainly can. They believe that's what's going to stop it. People don't agree with it, doesn't matter. They have the right to do it. So if everyone's wearing masks and that's the obligation, then everybody should wear a mask. And if everyone's wearing a mask and you're defiantly not doing it because you don't believe in whatever, and you look religious, yeah, that's going to be a problem. I don't care if you don't believe it or not. It's going to make you look bad. It's going to make all Orthodox Jews look bad. But you're going to say how the secular Jews don't wear it. You know, if they would put up a fight, fine. They're not going to look as bad. They'll get screamed at, whatever. An Orthodox Jew will be 10 times worse. 10 times worse. Right? They don't want to stick out that way. Doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. But if no one, you know, if that's not enforced, and no one out there is wearing masks almost anywhere else, why are you thinking about because of religion? What does that have to do with anything? And if it wasn't religious, they would have said anything like that? Never. If it was an Arab, would have said anything like that? Never. Never. Come on, you're a religious Muslim. Don't you believe? Yeah, you think they're going to say that? They're not stupid. Because if they would say that, you know what the Muslims would do? You know what these Arabs would do? They'd start blowing up buses left and right. You're attacking my religion? Even if it's a false religion, they'll fight to the end. Right? They understand that. They would never, ever do it to a Muslim. Ever. Be terrified to do such a thing. Oh, an Orthodox Jew? Yeah, we're going to call him up. But you're not calling out anyone else. It's called hypocrisy. Right? That's called racism 101. You discriminate against the group just because of who they are. Right? For no other reason. Because no one else is abiding by the laws. Right? And they're not even enforcing them. Right? So that sort of got my ire. Got me angry. Because the person talking about religion. Well, that's what religion has to do with anything. It has nothing to do with anything. But he's got the chutzpah to put it down a religious Jew. Right? This guy knows anything about Shabbos? No. You know anything about kashrus? No. What are you bringing a religious for? Right? What are you bringing a religion for? So I was dying to say something. I just didn't want to go to jail. So I spared my wife. I spared my wife over here. But that should be the reaction. Jumping out of our skin, someone does that. Especially a Jew. A non-Jew I could understand. Non-Jew makes more sense. It's because they're anti-Semitic in general. So you get secular Jews just as anti-Semitic as non-Jews. Right? But, again, if the playing field is equal, and no one's abiding by it, why you single us up? Why are you single out an Orthodox Jew and make such a comment? Right? So I could have spoken up, got a fine, gone to jail. It's my free will. Certainly my free will. Could have started up a whole thing. And who knows what could have happened, etc. So in the end, I didn't. But if I would have, and I would have brought it upon myself, I had a good cause. I think I would have had a great cause. Even if I would have gone to jail and had to pay a fine. I think it was a great cause. And if I would have done it, I would have brought it upon myself. So what am I going to complain to God? Why'd you do this? That wouldn't be the question. You're going to say, this situation caused X. Yeah, who said I had to react like that? It was my choice. And if I made that choice, I'm not complaining to God here what the repercussions are. Because of my choice. They're the ones doing this thing. They're the ones being the anti-Semites. You're right. But who says I'd act in such a way? I shouldn't have acted, I didn't act in that way. What if I would have? I'm not going to blame God on that. I'm not going to blame the police officer for doing whatever he does. Right? So he's the one that caused it. He's the one who caused the situation. But I had free will to act or not. I didn't. But there could have been some serious repercussions. That would have been based on what I did. So because I didn't do anything, nothing happened. If I would have done something, probably would have been taken off the bus. Probably would have gone to jail. Probably would have been interrogated, paid a fine. Most likely. That was my choice. So, person, but they're the ones that started. But I'm the one who got involved. I didn't have to get involved. Right? So that's what I would say about that. Someone asks, why are rabbis anti-Zionist? Not every rabbi is anti-Zionist. And most rabbis are not anti-Zionist. Satmar are anti-Zionist. Satmar Hasidim, they're anti-Zionist. There's a group belongs, that's associated with the Eidah Haredis, and a lot of ultra-Orthodox Jews are also anti-Zionist, even though they live in Israel. Now, what's the reason? According to Satmar Hasidim, they don't believe you're allowed to live in the land and build it up before the Messiah comes, even though they have a group of their own Hasidim that lives here. Right? So they believe that, since the state itself, you don't have the Messiah. It's not a theocracy. You don't have religious Jews running it. They do all kinds of things against, Orthodox Jews in general. We shouldn't be here. That's what they hold. We shouldn't be here. Now, even the ones that live here, right, that live in the state of Israel, but I'm not even saying they don't vote. There are plenty of people that vote that, don't believe in the state of Israel, but they live here. They feel it's the best place to live as a Jew. Right? But at the end of the day, they themselves are anti-Zionists because of, they don't disagree in that sense with Satmar Hasidim. Right? That this quote unquote country is being run by the Evrov, by the mixed multitude. Not being run by religious Jews. The religious Jews in government, okay, but they're not running things. Right? They're subservient to the seculars. And they're just hoping to make the state at least somewhat more Jewish than they would. There is what to be said for that. And that's why many great rabbis of this generation, previous generations, said we should vote. Ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel should vote. Because if we don't vote, we don't have a say, we don't have political parties, it'll be a lot worse. It'll be a lot worse. This will be more like a secular country. So that we have the power to change things. Now we got big numbers, etc. So there are those that are anti the state, anti the country, because it's not run according to the Torah, right? Being run by the Erev, by the mixed multitude. Seculars would make this place no different than any other country in the world. It just happens to be a state of Jews, right? Just like Herzl wrote in his book, Zionist State, and he would have been happy with Uganda or Argentina. He locked out and got the state of Israel. Fine. The country of Israel. But he wanted a state of Jews. He didn't want any Jewish trimmings. Nothing according to Jewish law, nothing. They want to be secular, totally secular. But they want to go back to the Jewish homeland. Fine. Right? So many rabbis today in the previous generations see what the secular state has done. A lot of negative things. Many negative things. And if they had their way again, there wouldn't be any, Orthodox Jews here. There wouldn't be any, there wouldn't be Shabbos observed. There wouldn't be a lot of things here. It would look 10 times worse. So there is a little bit of a difference between Satmar Hasidim and others, where even though in principle many rabbis hold that the state's not being run the way it should be, i.e. according to Torah. So therefore, they would agree with Satmar Hasidim. Only difference is, these rabbis told you allowed to live here. And according to Satmar Hasidim, they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't live here until the Messiah comes. Right? So in other words, according to them, we're not allowed to build up the state. We're not allowed to do anything until the Messiah comes, period. Right? And anything we do here is bad. giving in to what the Zionists want and different things. There is a question. So if really Satmar holds, another groups hold, you're not allowed to live here. So why does a lot of the followers do live here? Even if they don't get benefit from the state, they don't get money from the government, other things. Even if not, so why are they here? Why would they live here? Now, in general, I would say that I don't think there's any question when it comes to spirituality, especially in those religious areas here in Israel. You can't compare this to living anywhere else. No offense to Lakewood, New Jersey, no offense to New Square, New York, other strong Jewish communities, it's not the same as living here. Nothing to talk about. And someone told me, I've heard a number of people say, you go to Tel Aviv, you come to Jerusalem, you feel the difference. You go to Jerusalem, you go to other outlying places, you feel the difference. You feel the difference. But again, why, so why would so many rabbis come out against it? Because, first of all, the anti-Jewish, anti-traditional Jewish look that these secularists want. A lot of the people coming here that build up the land, all these Zionists are communists. It's funny. I was talking to someone the other day. The only democracy in the Middle East is Israel compared to all the other Arab nations. Okay. But it's not a democracy. Anyone who lives here knows it's not a democracy. Not even close. Right? In many ways. But that's a whole nother discussion. So, that being the case, so why should we be ecstatic about having these people in power? You get somebody who's the head of the government, not to get into politics, and he's got, he wears the yarmulke on his head, size of a dime, right? Really, yarmulke's got to cover most of your head, for a guy, for sure. But okay, look at a lot of the policies he's doing. How can he call himself a religious Jew? When he wants to do away with proper conversions, proper kashrus, right? Give Reform and conservative, rabbis a status here. Don't you believe in the Torah? You don't believe in the Torah. How can you make so many decrees against us? Against Torah. It's what he's doing. Totally what he's doing. So the fact that, a person can do such a thing with the yarmulke on his head, isn't there no greater disgrace of God's name than that? Total disgrace. Even to wear a yarmulke is not religious, doesn't proclaim to be religious, one thing. I wouldn't have any claims against him. I mean, I would, but not in this case. But the fact that he wears one, calls himself religious, and all that, how can he make decrees against Torah? He's more like a secularist than he is an Orthodox Jew. You see by his policies what he says. Because the reality is he should align much more with ultra-Orthodox Jews than with the secularists. No question, but he doesn't. It's clear he doesn't. So, that's also a danger. Tremendous danger. You have someone like that. And that's the problem. And that's why my Rebbe and others have said you don't join the government, secular government, because they're going to have a negative influence. Totally negative influence on you. On the other hand, people, not only that, you don't vote. According to them, you shouldn't take money from the government. Not everyone abides by that. But, in general, fine, you live here. You live here, etc. Fine. But who says you should vote and have anything to do with the government at all? On the other hand, what would the other great rabbis say? They say, listen, we're not interested in really being part of the government. We're not interested in having anything to do with these secular Jews that hate Judaism. Their own, they're anti-Semites in and of themselves. Okay, so if we don't do that, if we don't mobilize, and we're not part of the government or in the opposition, whatever the case is, looking out for our own interests and the interests of Torah, then it's going to be 10 times worse. 10 times worse. That's the majority opinion. Let's make clear. That 100% is the majority opinion. Right? The majority of rabbis today, ultra-Orthodox rabbis today, in Israel and elsewhere will say 100%, when there's an election, you should vote. Nothing to talk about. Overwhelmingly majority. But okay, there's a minority who'll say you should have anything to do with them. Should have anything to do with the government, should have anything to do with voting, none of these things. It's much better to be in the opposition. You know why? Because if they start doing things where behind their back or in front of their face, They have things that that they're desecrating Shabbos, and they're building things or having things open on Shabbos. You're sitting in the government, you're a part of it. Right? My Rebbe would say that clear. You're part of it. You didn't sanction it. You're not sanctioning desecration of Shabbos. You're right. Even if you're not sanctioning it, but you're a part of the government. You gotta have a backbone here. Not just about money. Not just about looking out for yeshivas and other things. So what about desecration of Shabbos? Or you don't care about desecration of Shabbos? Now we'll look the other way for this because we're getting other things. How can you look the other way? It's like you did it yourself. Right? People would say that clear. That is like you're doing it yourself. But you didn't do it. Doesn't matter. As if you are saying it as if to say that's okay. So you say, come on, one hand rubs the other, look the other way, different things. But at the end of the day, you're kind of silly. Because they're building this, give one example, building a, railroad, I think it was going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem or wherever it was going, and they had workers on Shabbos, right? So, it wasn't even this prime minister, right? It was Netanyahu. What was the claim? Pikuach nefesh. Pikuach nefesh is like you're saving a life. So that, that you can desecrate Shabbos, save a life. So you're saving time. What are you saving time over here? What is so crucial? If that's not done today, it'll be done tomorrow. No, we want to finish it quicker. That's not permissibility. Desecrate Shabbos. Totally not. Right? Just an excuse, bad excuse. Flimsy excuse. Right? So people in the government, they look kind of silly. They look very stupid over here. Because that's going on right in front of their face, even if they don't see it. It's going on right in front of their face and not doing anything to stop it. They had any backbone, they say, listen, you continue this, we're leaving the government. Right? Then the government would fall. Right? Today, that's not the case. But, they could have made the government fall. So they didn't. They didn't. So what? Money's more important. Money for yeshivas is more important than desecration of Shabbos. Money for other things, for other Orthodox causes, is more important than desecrating Shabbos. Anyone can say that? No. But again, you got big rabbis telling them you have to have these political parties. It'd be a heck of a lot worse, if they weren't in the government. I would agree. I would 100% agree. On the other hand, I'm just pointing out all these other things that go on under their noses, in front of their face. They have a part in it because they don't have a backbone to say anything against it. Now, again, it could be they're getting kickbacks for other things. They're keeping quiet for this so they can get other things. Okay. There are a lot of underhanded things going on here. Or I wouldn't even say underhanded. It's politics. Right? It's politics. Fine. Without getting into politics. So even if that's how politics works, who says that's a good thing? And who says that you want that money anyway and you have to give in to Shabbos desecration? So, based on that, that's why a lot of rabbis are against state of Israel. But even if they're against it, most rabbis would say, it's the best place to live. It's not a contradiction. It's just you're living under people who run the government that are corrupt. And not just corrupt, they are anti-Torah. Very much anti-Torah. Someone asks, are corporate companies flexible with Shabbos for Orthodox Jews? Question is, he's talking about, in the state of Israel, there are, obviously there are companies, there are companies that are run by, they're run by people that are off on Shabbos, right? They shut down on Shabbos. I have heard that there are companies that stay open, on Shabbos, whatever, and someone Shabbos observant, they make it very hard for them. That's forbidden. Right? Obviously, that's forbidden. They can't work on Shabbos. Right? So, I would say, it depends who runs the company. In general, most things should be shut down on Shabbos. Right? Buses should be shut down. Restaurants should be shut down. Any of these things should be shut down. Now, in general, even in the States or anywhere else, someone's an Orthodox Jew, they have to say straight away, if they're going to be hired, they don't work on Shabbos. And they have to leave early on Friday. Right? They can compensate and say, I work on Sunday, I do other things. But technically, if the company would say, well, we don't want someone like that, whatever, that's discrimination. If they're qualified, that's discrimination. Right? 100% discrimination. So I would say, without knowing statistics, I would say there are companies that are flexible, that will be flexible, and others may not be. I don't know what the stats are. I don't know what the statistics are, but it depends on the company. We're talking about a big company in the States, and this person is is an Orthodox Jew. And they make it clear, I'm not working on Shabbos, whatever. There are companies that will go out of their way for this person. That will, allow them, to do that, and they'll compensate them. They can work on Sunday or, whatever, or they work extra during the week to make up for the time they're not there. There are ways around it. Totally ways around it. Depends on the company. Right? Totally depends on the company. Are there companies more accommodating? Yeah. Are the companies, much less accommodating? Sure. Right? It goes both ways. What are the statistics? How many companies like this, like that? I don't know. I don't know the insides of companies. I don't know. I don't know really that much about it. I do know there has been discrimination, though. Right? That's clear. That is definitely clear. There has been discrimination. I'm not saying across the board, right? But I know that there are people who went for jobs, and they made that clear they can't work on Shabbos, et cetera, and they weren't hired. Right? If they're qualified, they don't hire them. I mean, it's their choice, but that's really discrimination, total discrimination. So I would say it depends. I would say it depends on the company, right? But there are, there are people that, when they go for, they go for a job interview, obviously if they look visibly Jewish, religious, they have to stay clear. They have to stay clear over here, right? Even a non-Jew, the process of conversion, I would say, if you're looking for a job, you live in a Jewish community already, you have to tell them straight up, you're not going to work on Shabbos. You can say, but you're not Jewish yet, so it doesn't matter, right? I've written letters for people. They're in the process of conversion. They can't work on Shabbos. Doesn't matter if secular Jews work on Shabbos or not. It's irrelevant, right? The idea is an arad, right? But you have to say that at the outset. I had somebody, I don't think they ended up converting in the end. They were in the process of conversion. I mentioned this story before, and they had a meeting that they had to go to. They couldn't get out of. It was on the first day of Sukkot. First day of Sukkot. So they said, what do I do? How do I get out of it? I can't believe this happened. They said, Rabbi, what's your advice? So I told them, you have to buy a Jewish calendar. I said, how in the world do you make an appointment, an appointment you can't get out of in September or middle September, end of September, early October, and not know that that's when the holidays could fall out? How in the world do you not know that? Right? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. How do you not know that? I said, go to your local yeshiva, go to a, a Jewish funeral parlor, whatever, buy a Jewish calendar. I was a little bit rough on this person. Right? But I said, go buy yourself a Jewish calendar. Because that's going to be pretty crucial. Because they're going on and I can't believe I made this mistake. How could it be? How did this? How I said, you want to be a Jew? You got to know when the holidays are. And if you have something coming up in September or mid-September, October, you'd better darn well find out when the holidays are. Because you could very well make an appointment and not know it's a holiday. Very simple. So I told them, buy a Jewish calendar. Or you have them online. Right? Very easy to do. But I said, how will the, you have to know how to think like a Jew. You can't work on Sukkot on the first days, the last days. Passover, same thing. Intermediate days, a different issue. You're not allowed to work on those days. So you got to figure out when the holiday is. And what are you going to do? The end of March this year, right? The end of March is Passover because it's a leap year. Person has an important business meeting they can't get out of. The end of March and in April. Well, can't Passover be in the first week of April? Sure. Second week of April? Yeah. Third week of April? Yeah. Right? But it's a leap year, it's earlier. Don't you have to know when the holiday falls out during that time? Of course you have to know that. Any holiday you can't work on, you have to know when it falls out. You have to tell them I can't work on these days. You have to take them as sick days. That's what you have to do. But you have to know how to think and live like a Jew, period. One of these things is knowing when the holidays are. I mean, I am kind of making fun here, to a certain extent, but I think that's olive base. That's olive base over here. And I said to them in no uncertain terms, I said that's irresponsible, totally irresponsible. How can you make a time, when it's a good chance that the holidays come up? And nuts in my language. And maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh, but I wanted to make the point. You want to know what it means to live like a Jew? Get yourself a Jewish calendar, know when the holidays come up. And you have to know that. Right? But again, a person looking for a job as a JIT, even as a Jew in training, or whatever, you have to tell them. You have to tell them you're not working on Friday, or you're going to leave early on Friday. But you have to be flexible. You work on Sunday, work on other times. You make it up during the week, whatever it is. Right? And they can say, well, we don't want somebody like that. That's their choice. I definitely know people have been discriminated against. I said, okay, welcome to the world of being a Jew. All right, but that's an obligation. That you don't get around. You don't get around it. Right? Can't work on Shabbos. Can't work on festivals. Right? First days, last days, whatever. Right? That's it. Can't do it. So if you can't do it, you have to tell them. Right? 100%. You have to tell them. These are the days I can't work. Take them off as sick days. That's it. And to say, listen, you don't work, you don't get paid. You're not going to have a job. That's it. This is what happened when Jews came to America. They worked during the week. Come Friday, say, not coming in Saturday, they lost the job. It's a tremendous test. Tremendous test. And many people failed the test. It was a hard test. How are they going to live? How are they going to make money if they keep getting fired every week? It's hard. Right? Today's not like that. Today we have it so much easier. There's no question. But again, you want to be a Jew, this is what you have to do. You have to make it known clear. When I was involved in real estate, people know. After a certain time on Friday, I answer the phone. That was it. Care how important it was. In a festival, not around. You like it, you don't like it, that's the way it is. They can say, well, very good. I was my own company, so I can, do what I want. But, in the end, I made that clear. I don't care what it is. And I got messed up because of something, because of a holiday. Totally got messed up from it. But, I just came to the conclusion, okay, God wanted me to lose this money or not make as much. Okay. But, like I say, it was like significant amount. But still, you can say, but you always say you never lose by keeping Shabbos and keeping the festivals. True. In the end, it's all a test. Right? That's what we said at the beginning. It's all a test. Question is how you react to the test. Someone asks, what dynasty am I? I don't know. I don't know if I'm a dynasty or not. Right? Someone says they're going to call them, call people, follow my teachers, they're going to call them the Kaufman Hasidim. Right? But I'm not a Chassid. Right? So I just say, you would say I'm ultra Orthodox or Haredi or Yeshivish. Right? Those are the terminology that I would, that I would use. I'll spell it out here. So that's what I would say. I love to have my own dynasty, maybe one day, but not Hasidic. At least not that I know I have any Hasidic blood in me. Most likely I don't. From where my grandparents came from. In Russia, definitely not. Definitely not Hasidic. but I can't say 100%, but I think it's pretty clear from where they were born and where they lived, before they came to the States. So that's what I would say on that. It's interesting. I think here in Israel, I think people work on Shabbos to get paid like time and a half. Nice incentive. That's great Shabbos. You make a lot more money. Whatever. That's also forbidden. Definitely also forbidden. But again, person never loses out by keeping Shabbos or keeping festivals. Because God can give a person, God can give a person a livelihood whether they work 6 days or they work 7 days or they work 5 days. Right? What about the competition? They're going to make more money. They're going to this, they're going to that. You're right. Right? And, instead of coming to me, they'll go somewhere else. Okay? So they'll go somewhere else. But God takes care of everybody. The same God that can give, a person a livelihood in 6 days can give him a livelihood in 5 days. And make him take off certain times. Because you have no choice. Right? It comes the month, it comes the holidays in Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. You're going to be missing a lot of time. A lot of time. That's going to be after, taking off his sick days. Okay? Right? But this is already decreed by Rosh Hashanah. How much a person's going to make. So, God can take care of our needs in a split second. So that we don't have to worry about. But, yeah, a person's got a business and it's competition. Right? Very, very likely a person can say, well, if I'm not open, I don't do this, I don't do that, I'm going to lose out. You never lose out. Keeping Shabbos, you never lose. Keeping the festivals, you never lose. And a person thinks they're going to make up for it other ways that aren't good, you're going to lose out in other ways. You have dental issues, health issues, car problems. You lose out. So the amount of money you're supposed to make, that's what you're going to get. No matter what you do, that's the amount you're going to get. You're going to try and get it this way, that way, a little bit underhanded. You're going to lose another way. All right, that's how it works. Now there's Kaufman Docs. I like that. Or Docsman. Okay. Rosh Hashiva, I'm working on that also one day. One day, hopefully, wear a lot of different hats. See where it goes. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. There are other questions. I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or at beyondorthodoxconversion.com. You can send me Beyond Orthodox Conversion or at orthodoxconversion.com. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBIChaimKoffman @gmail.com. Wish I'm having a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, depending where you are.